Welcome, everyone, to the One More Game podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jeremy Culver, a.k.a. Darcy, and with me is the California Thirst Quencher, Pete Leja. Pete, how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a good week for the most part. Did a lot of Dodgers games. Got to listen to the Homer analysts discuss how Tony Gonsolin should be the leading candidate for Cy Young, even though he's pitched like 50 less innings than like the front runners, which is like, like 5 whole games less worth of innings. It actually made me wonder. I was like, man, I bet Hawk Harrelson was like this to a lot of other people that had to watch. Like, I remember when I worked at Hy-Vee while I was in college, my manager was a Cleveland fan, and he hated Hawk Harrelson. And I always kind of knew he was a homer. I mean, me and my brother used to make fun of like the Hawkisms and just like, how he used to say the 3-1 count was the catbird seat. And then we like made up a seat for each at bat, like the 0-2 count was the shit can seat and stuff like that. And just I wonder if this is what it's like when you hear homer analysts for like in all cases when you're not like a direct fan of the team. It's kind of hilarious though.
Hey, obviously I'm biased here, but I loved Hawk Harrelson. Any person who doubts Hawk Harrelson's greatness is just a bona fide hater, because Hawk Harrelson was great. All right. He
had some good calls. He probably could have laid off on the nicknames, although the Big Hurt is like an all-time legendarily great nickname for Frank Thomas. So yeah, there is that one. He did get one right.
Hey, the Big Hurt is a good one. But I'm glad that you're doing well. Obviously glad to have you here on the podcast. Of course, in a few weeks you won't be here because, of course, we recorded an episode early for my move, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear that podcast. We interviewed Melissa White, a voice actor out of Las Vegas, and it was a really insightful interview, a really insightful discussion, and again, I can't wait for it. I think it was a really good one to come on there, and love to bring her back for a future episode. So
yeah, I'm really excited for that one. I'm really excited for that one. I really appreciate a lot of the voice actors. Of course, I watch a lot of anime, and obviously I play games, so like hearing the voice actors and actresses and everybody do their part to get the game, like give the games more life, more oomph, more immersion when you're a part of it. It's really interested in what she had to say and what the interview took place. So looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah, so keep a lookout for that one. But obviously, that's in the future. You're here for the now, and let's get into this week's episode. So thank you all for tuning in to the One More Game podcast. This is a podcast centered around making sure you're informed about all the video game news happening around the world, whether it's Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or PC. If there's news that you need to know about, we'll make sure that you know about it. When you're listening to this on your podcast service, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what your service offers. And if your podcast service allows reviews, please leave a 5-star review and tell everyone why you love the One More Game podcast, because we really enjoy bringing this to you each and every Friday. If you'd like to be part of the show by asking a question or suggesting a topic for discussion, head on over to pressstartnews.net/onemoregame and fill out that submission form, and your submission could be used on the next episode, or you could drop it down into the chat over here on youtube.com/presssstart28 when we do go live. We always post about when we're going live over on our social accounts, so also make sure you follow us over there. But as you drop them in the chat, we will reference them throughout the show. But if this is your first time to the podcast, welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy your listen, and I hope you enjoy your stay. If you are returning, you already know what it is. We start off every single podcast talking about what we've been playing lately. So, Pete, what have you been playing lately?
So, I haven't been playing any new games lately. Unfortunate about that. But I have gotten back on the bandwagon for 2 games. I talked a little bit about both of them last week. Magic the Gathering is having their set rotation coming up in a couple of weeks. I think it's coming up like 2 weeks from today, actually.
Yeah, something very soon. I saw it on Twitter. So
I've been playing a little bit of Arena. They have a new format called Explorer. In Paper Magic, they have a format called Pioneer, which is like a bunch of like sets from like something like 2014 built up to now, and Explorer is kind of like Arena tried to make their own format, and it kind of worked until they started making cards specifically in digital, and then that sort of started kind of getting all messed up. There's definitely a group. It had its fans. It was really interesting, but the more cards that were like more digital based, it felt less like Magic and more like something completely different. And that was part of the reason why I started falling off the bandwagon, because once their main format standard gets boring, kind of don't want to play it anymore. Well, Explorer is like all the cards that are legal in Pioneer in paper are legal on this Explorer format, and eventually they're just going to have most, if not all, of the Pioneer cards and just have straight Pioneer, from what I understand, on Arena. So that was nice. So I've been getting more into that. The Explorer format's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying that. And then the big one, the one we talked, another one we talked about last week, Genshin Impact. Man, this new one, this new update, this 3.0 Sumeru, it's been a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I've had since since I started playing the game, since they launched it. So the big reason is Inazuma was like the last big region. They started out with Mondstadt, and then it was Liyue. Those are like the first two regions that you get to be a part of, and then Inazuma was like the first, like this is the new region, the first one. But they wanted to make it different from Mondstadt and Liyue, which is more like an exploratory kind of thing. So when you jump into Inazuma, it's almost like a civil war you're jumping into. There's a lot of like it's a very hostile region. You have to like perform a bunch of quests just to unlock each island, to the point where like the atmosphere itself is not like just killing your character. It's actually kind of weird. Like the first when you first get to Inazuma, like the first opening town, you can't actually even get out of until you like proceed partway through the story quest, and then you go out and it's just a giant thunderstorm, and lightning strikes your character all the time and shocks them for like a bunch of damage, and it was really, really aggravating and annoying. But the lore was really interesting. This one feels almost like something out of Indiana Jones. You go through when you first are coming through, there's this cavern you're going through. You start out in a ravine from Liyue, which is like the border to Sumeru, and you go through this cavern to actually go to the new region. And you come out, you're in this rainforest, you're in a jungle, and there's like it actually feels different from every region. Inazuma didn't feel a whole lot different than Liyue and Mondstadt, except for the fact that it was an archipelago instead of just a couple of countries on a continent. Sumeru, but like all the like it was like a lot of the same like villains, a lot of the same mooks you were fighting, maybe with different color shades. In this one, there's like a new group of like there's like a new group of like mooks you're fighting. They also have like actual creatures. They're like saber-toothed tiger type things, giant like pack beasts, but they're like kind of like mastodon kind of things, not that big. But like there's just a lot that's going on. There's a lot that it feels new. It feels refreshing. And because it's a jungle, you're like climbing everywhere and going everywhere. It actually was kind of funny. When I first started the story quest, they're like, all right, go forward like 500 feet and talk to the next person. And I was just like, I'm just going to go exploring. And it just kind of veered off the path and just started going around and everything. And it just felt so great to just go around and just exploring things and not feeling like trapped down into the certain thing that they wanted me to do. And Inazuma was fun and the lore was great. But by the time I got unlocked all the islands, I was kind of like, I don't want to explore anymore because I'm really annoyed with like what was going on. And Sumeru, I just want to keep going and keep going. I'm probably going to keep going after we get off this podcast. Honestly, I can't believe you interrupted my gameplay, Jeremy.
That's what I do.
What have you been playing lately anyway, man?
So I have been playing, I won't talk about it too much on this podcast. Obviously, you'll hear more about it in the future podcast, but I went back to playing The Last Remnant, trying to get further in that one. Of course, still enjoying it and stuff. The game, though, that I wanted to talk most about, I'm going to talk about partially two games, but one of them more specifically is as part of this week being Gamescom over in Cologne, Germany. There's a lot of video game news that had dropped, obviously, which made even this episode hard to condense down to try to talk about things, which, spoiler alert, we're not talking about Gamescom, even though there's a bunch of announcements, but you can check out my archived stream reactions to it over here on youtube.com/pressstart28 or over at pressstartnews.net. However, with that being said, a number of game companies dropped some demos out for people to play and dive into. And so I downloaded 2 of those demos. One of them is a game that is coming out in a couple of weeks, which is called Solstice. And then a second game, which is called Chained Echoes. And for Solstice, which is the first one I want to talk about, it is basically an action slashing game where you play as this main character. I don't remember all the names, so I can't remember exactly, but I think her name was Briar, and you have a soul that is basically inside you named Lute, which the way that the context seems to be is that Lute is your sister. It's your sister's soul that's stuck inside you. And you basically use like 2 different types of powers to help with defeating various creatures throughout the land. Your character is possessed by some kind of power. They're called like the Corrupted, and she can deal a lot of damage. It's fun. I enjoyed it, but the problem I did have with it, and at least on the PC version, is the game had a lot of performance issues and made my PC continuously run my fans at a very high speed, to the point where I was getting very annoyed listening to my fans just like rev up really loud and then come back down and just keep doing that the entire time I played. Didn't matter that I dropped the textures or the graphics or anything of that nature. And it's not like I have a bad PC. I mean, I have a fairly strong PC. Yes, it needs some upgrades, but I mean, I have an NVIDIA 2080. I have a Ryzen 7 2700X. Like, I have a good PC, but it was having some performance issues, and it was also noticeable during cutscenes where it was just the game would progress forward. There was no like jaggedness in the audio, but it looked like the screen was running at like a 30 frames per second, whereas the rest of the game looked like it was running anywhere from like 40 to 60, and it was just kind of all over the place. So
did you get like
obviously
screen tearing and stuff? Or?
I did not get screen tearing. That was the biggest thing that was kind of annoying to me, which is why I was like, well, maybe if I drop down the frame rates, or I locked, I V-synced it to my screen. I tried locking the frame rate to 60 frames per second, and I was just having performance issues throughout the time. So I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'm going to end up picking it up now. Obviously, if I do, it would be down the line for possibly on sale. But the other game I want to talk about is Chained Echoes. So Chained Echoes is an indie RPG. It's coming from a company, and based off their Twitter profile, it looks like they're based out of Germany as well. This game I have talked about in the past in my Twitter account and stuff about. This is one of the RPGs that I'm really looking forward to. It's an indie RPG, as I said. It's turn-based combat, and in the bigger sense, it's basically, and it even has it here on the website, it's a classic 2D RPG with swords, magic, and mechs, and that's kind of like the big tagline for it. The demo is a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun with it. I only played it for about half an hour, maybe an hour last night. I got through like the opening part of the demo and was just finishing kind of that opening epilogue there. But you play as a character named Glenn, or at least that's how it starts the demo off, and you were trying to go on this mission. They call it a suicide mission, to basically destroy this kind of stone. And when you get there and you destroy it, you found out basically that it was not the stone you think it was, and the demo kind of or that section I should say ends with it looking like you just set off a nuclear bomb. So like that was kind of like what the heck just happened. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think the graphics,
you shouldn't have did that.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. I think the graphics though are really nice. It's a 2D pixel art, and I think that it looks really nice. It's really well done. The combat was really smooth. It has this combat meter that you have to balance called the overdrive meter, which basically every attack you do increases this meter, and when you get it into a green zone, you deal extra damage, you take half damage, and your skills cost half. But if you accidentally let it get all the way up to red, then you go into basically overheat, and then the enemy can deal like a ton of additional damage to you. So you have to do this balance of attack and defense and managing the system. And I really liked it. I like the mech style of it, and so I'm having a lot of fun with it. Again, it's one of my RPGs, indie RPGs that I was really looking forward to this year. It is supposed to come out in Burr 2022. And why I say Burr 2022 is if you go look at the trailer, that's literally how it ends. It rolls like trying to tell you when it's going to come out, and it ends with asterisk, 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 BER 2022. So it could be, I doubt it's September 2022, but it could be September, could be October, could be November, could be December, but it's supposed to come out sometime this latter half. So I'd recommend going to check it out over on Steam. Like I said, I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Was the gameplay your favorite part of that one, or was there something different? Sound like you talked a lot about the gameplay, like the jockeying of position of like, like just borderline trying to not overheat, but like taking advantage of all the stuff. Or was the lore or the graphics or anything like your favorite part?
I mean, because I only got to play a little bit of it, the combat was probably the most fun part that I did take in. But what they alluded to in the story seems to be, I guess capture my attention. Now, granted, I'm going to be honest, right? It's why I am, in a sense, not always the biggest on indie RPGs, is indie RPGs typically just do exactly what JRPG tropes do, right? And so that's not anything bad against it, but when you're an indie RPG, sometimes you don't have as much polish as obviously the AAAs that do follow the tropes, but have like a different amount of writers to help with smoothing out the writing. But I did like how it opened. I didn't want to spoil too much on how it opened because, again, I don't know how much of the demo gets into the story. But what was there, I did like. But I did, of course, there's like a lot of foreshadowing that I was just like, all right, these people are going to die. There's no way that they're going to live. Like, again, not to spoil, but one comment was like, in the suicide mission, they're supposed to get a lot of money coming out if they succeed. And one of them was like, well, you have a kid and a wife at home. What are you going to do with the money? And he's like, oh, even if I get all the money, I would choose to stay on the battlefield. And I was just like, as soon as he said it, I was like, this dude's dying. There's no way he's going to survive.
Death flag approved.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way he's going to survive. But yeah,
oh my God.
It's a lot of fun. So yeah, go download it and check it out. I don't know how long it'll run. So when you're listening to this, go check it out now. But we've been talking about what we've been playing lately for quite a bit. Let's get to our gaming catalog because we do have a number of things to talk about, which is the story that's a non-story that's turned into a story that we're going to talk about Amazon and EA. Bandai Namco is working to secure additional IPs and partnerships. The PS5 is getting an increase in its price, and two games that I'm really looking forward to and want to come back are now potentially coming back. We're going to get here in a little bit, but let's go to the first story, the main catalog, which is, again, the story that is a non-story that has turned into a story because of the frenzy that it started, and it is Amazon buying EA, and I'm doing air quotes here for those that are listening and can't see what I'm doing, but we're going to the usatoday.com article for the win section, which is their gaming section, and I'm using this article because this is the article that spawned the whole shebang that was going on early this Friday morning, which is now titled as Reports Refute Rumors of Amazon Buying Electronic Arts. But obviously, this was a much different story earlier today. So I am going to read what is available now, and so everyone gets a picture of what's going on. So this is as of 10:37 Eastern Time. Earlier today, GLHF, a gaming esports outlet and content partner for the Win, ran a version of this story on our website that violated our editorial standards regarding the use of unnamed and unvetted sources. We have updated the story to remove all mention of those sources. Now, to the part that's still there, which is, though it's been rumored Amazon will soon announce that it's put in a formal offer to acquire Electronic Arts, Amazon is not expected to make a bid for EA, according to CNBC. Rumors have been circling going online for a few weeks about a potential EA buyout with Apple, Disney, and Amazon listed as potential buyers. The rumors come after a range of unprecedented acquisitions and consolidations in the video game space, with the biggest of them being Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Now, the original story said that Amazon was going to announce today that they have acquired EA, which sent the Twitterverse into a frenzy. A lot of people tweeting things, including myself, who woke up to see the news. And of course, then the heads that be, the bigger investigative journalists, got in and were like, no, this is not happening, and which led to this whole frenzy. So the reason why we're talking about it is because, again, how much it sent the frenzy on Twitter. So Pete, I gotta ask you, first off, as a person who works in news, how shocked are you basically that this story went out and has been basically within an hour, 2 hour span got refuted and pulled back? But two, that we're getting, again, I guess, continuous leaks and stories and rumors that EA is going to be sold at some point.
Well, working in news, I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising in the sense that it got so much momentum so quickly. But on the flip side, we're talking about two, to put it mildly, controversial companies that were involved. Amazon, with all the stuff that they've had, with all the problems they had, not to mention Jeff Bezos, and then Electronic Arts, who hasn't endeared themselves to the gaming community for quite a while now. But I mean, this without social media, this kind of would have went through a natural cycle, right? There were rumors out there. Somebody said that, hey, these rumors are true. They're not exactly like a major media site. And then the major media sites kind of went in and did some digging and tried to find out if they were there or there was anything there. And did you watch the CNBC tweet that was in the article?
I need to watch it still. I have not yet, but
they were really dismissive of good luck, have fun, to the point where it's kind of like, man, do you need to punch down like that, y'all? I mean, what the hell are y'all doing over there? Doesn't, like, okay, these rumors came out from this esports company, and it turns out that they might not be true, at least for today. What it sounded like is that the source that told them that they weren't involved were also involved with the talks that EA was when they were trying to get sold to Disney, and Disney kind of turned them down. And so like they were also kind of sort of involved with like EA's trying to get sold to other companies that was been reported on since May, I believe, is like when we first started talking about this. And the people that were involved in that said that there's nothing there as of right now. So it wouldn't be dropping today if there is anything. So that was kind of the main thing. Like I said, it was kind of funny how CNBC was just punching down in that regard. It was kind of like, man, I don't know if you need to be doing all that. The answer to your second question is, we were talking, like I was saying earlier, these are two very controversial companies, and we know that EA has been looking for a lot of, looking to be sold for a few months now. And also, this is a controversial topic. The companies are controversial and the topic's controversial. We're having a lot of condensing of the gaming industry. Activision Blizzard's going to Microsoft. PlayStation or Sony started buying up some companies. We just talked about last week of a bunch of acquisitions, fairly minor in comparison to, Activision Blizzard and some of the stuff that Sony's been acquiring. But this year, the last 2 years specifically, has been the condensing of the gaming industry and publishers and developers. And I think it's eventually going to be a legitimate problem. And Electronic Arts is one of the big AAA, one of the last big AAA groups that aren't owned by anybody, and they're looking to get sold. And you go to somebody big like Amazon, who's already looking to try to make their gaming division a little bit better. You get Electronic Arts in there. I'm not saying, I don't know if there'd be a big enough division to like make their own gaming system like Microsoft ended up doing. But they start making some games. I mean, Madden's going to be under the Amazon number. You're going to see a lot of ads for Amazon on the Madden games and stuff like that. I could promise you that if that ever happened. So it's a topic that a lot of people are interested in and kind of worried about, see where all this is going to go. So I'm not surprised that it got as much heat as it did. If there was no social media, this would have went through the natural progression of like this would have popped up on CNN maybe, and then it would have petered out once the it was found out that there wasn't actually anything there. It is kind of surprising some of the bigger companies just like immediately just went as like we got to get this out fast before we confirm it officially. But that's also kind of with social media now. That's how the news media rolls. Like they got to be first, and accuracy can come later because they can always just, hey, this is actually what's going on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's kind of just crazy in the whole way that it just unfolded, and as exactly kind of like you said, just like the way that it ended up pulling back. And I'm pulling it up. I was in the middle of like looking for it when you were talking, but the person who wrote this, Kirk Keand, I should say, posted on their Twitter about it, and they said if you get something wrong in games journalism, it's a bit like when you work behind a bar and drop a pint glass and everyone cheers, except instead of cheering they chuck more pint glasses at you. Also, CNBC said it isn't happening today, which isn't the same as it isn't happening. Yep. And if I turn out to be wrong, then I was wrong. It happens. It's the first time it's happened to me with a report like this, but it was bound to happen eventually. And that is kind of true, right? As a journalist, where of course unfortunately with these kind of stories, you have to vet these things a lot deeper, because this is a big story. Sometimes you feel that you vetted enough and your source is accurate enough or gave you the right stuff, and you go with that source, and then things turn out to not be right. That's part of journalism. That's part of doing investigative journalism, is sometimes you just don't get it right. But I will say for myself, I just thought that this whole frenzy that it did start on Twitter was crazy, because people were just tweeting it left and right. Obviously, I tweeted it because I was like, what? Like, we knew about this rumor, since, as you said, since May, but I didn't really expect that it was going to happen this early. I think at the earliest, I still think this, and I said this earlier in a different discussion, that the earliest it would be probably is within the next year. Like, I think possibly next year we might see something like it, but I can't imagine it's this year at this time, at least. So it was kind of crazy. And then, of course, like you talked about, obviously, this source, the other people that are projected or at least rumored to be part of this acquisition at some point of like Disney and Apple and Amazon. And like, obviously, Amazon makes the most sense because of the fact they've been trying to break into video games for so long. They launched the Crucible, which that shuttered down, even though I enjoyed it. They launched New World, which people loved at first and now are not a huge fan of it. I haven't checked it recently, but I know it went from being like a positive game to now it's mixed in reviews on Steam. And I haven't launched it in quite a while, but like that was another aspect of it. And so like they've just struggled as probably a company who has too many diversified things does in breaking into that environment. And obviously, what's the best thing to do? Buy a studio that's established and can do it, right? Buy something that's been doing it and just keep moving as status quo. And obviously, that would be what Amazon wants to do. We'll see, of course, what this ends up unfolding for a while. But like other people said, and I will just kind of echo what some of the people say, as a journalist, and I know for you, like working in TV, right? Sometimes you hit and sometimes you miss. And this is one of those where like it's an understandable miss, or at least an acceptable miss. It's not like he damaged somebody's integrity or career. So like what other reporters did say in there, like I hope that, of course, he ends up being okay out of this and obviously learns and moves with this as it goes. But, obviously for a hot 2 hours, the internet was set ablaze with what's going on.
And like you were saying, like basically the part that's wrong is it's not happening today. The rumors are still out there. It's likely that Amazon's still looking forward to doing this or trying to do it if it works best for them. So like basically the only part he got wrong is that it's not happening today.
Yeah. So we'll see, of course, what that means in the future. What we'll also see what it means in the future is what other partnerships, purchases, buying go on. And could Bandai Namco be one of those? We're going to the Video Games Chronicle for this article written by Tom Ivan. And it is Elden Ring publisher working to secure IP and partnerships amid the mass acquisition spree. And I'm going to just say real quick for the title, I get Elden Ring's really big, but Bandai Namco is big in itself. You don't always have to use the Elden Ring title there. But anyways, we're going to the article now. Elden Ring publisher Bandai Namco has discussed its efforts to secure IP and partnerships with developers amid the recent spate of mergers and acquisitions in the games industry. In an interview with GameIndustry.biz, Bandai Namco Europe COO Arnaud Merler said the company has been working hard behind the scenes to insulate itself from the impact of industry consolidation, but that smaller publishers are having a harder time doing so. Quote, "What I find is that we have to secure the IPs that we create with the studios we partner with," he said. "When we invest in IP creation, when we invest in marketing for these IPs, we also have to keep in mind that we have to get some sort of security towards the future of the studio that develops this IP if the IP doesn't belong to us." So this is something that we work on. You know, this spread of acquisitions that we're seeing is affecting some of the smaller publishers in their capacity to access the best studios in the world. But we at Bandai Namco have the financial means to secure these partnerships. We work on a number of measures to secure those partnerships. You're talking first options rights, you're talking IP ownership, you're talking minority stakes in those studios. So there are ways to secure the relationships. Now, the mergers and acquisition activity in the game industry has hit a record $85 billion in 2021 and is expected to comfortably surpass that total this year. According to investment banking firm Drake Star Partners, the first half of the year saw $107 billion in total deal values for 651 announced and or closed deals. These include Microsoft's proposed $68.7 billion acquisition of Call of Duty publisher Activision Blizzard, Take-Two and Zynga's $12.7 billion merger, and Sony's $3.6 billion acquisition of Destiny marker Bungie. So, Pete, obviously a lot of money going around, and Bandai Namco is at least here in this article, in my opinion, saying, look, we're not going to be one of those places that are bought up right now. But they're also saying we're trying to buy up things themselves. So I guess, how do you, in your thoughts, handle essentially the acquisitions of these bigger studios and, of course, these smaller, I shouldn't say bigger studios, these bigger companies as well as these smaller companies like Bandai Namco?
I mean, this isn't the first industry that this has happened in. It's happened in a bunch of industries. A lot of the airlines are basically owned by like 3 or 4 major airline companies, and they're just a bunch of minor ones that are owned by the major ones. A lot of the distribution and food companies are all owned by one conglomerate entity and things like that. I don't like it. I honestly, I don't like it. I think it lowers competition. I think it makes it easier for these companies to realize that these corporations have realized that just because you can't have all of the pie like you used to before they started saying like, hey, you can't have monopolies anymore. Sorry, I know we made the board game. I know that's a thing, but you can't have monopolies in this country. But you know what's bigger than 5% of the pie? 10% of the pie, 15% of the pie, 25% of the pie, 33% of the pie. And that's what a lot of these corporations have figured out. It's like, yeah, maybe we can't get 100%, but 30% is bigger than 10. So why don't we try to go for that? And that's what's happening in a lot of these industries. The video game industry is just the most recent one. And we've talked about it before. It reduces competition. So these companies can theoretically work together if they want to make some of these kind of price control the pricing and all that. It also makes it so the bigger thing that I worry about, the competition part sucks, honestly. The bigger part I'm worried about is that it reduces the number of voices that can be used. It reduces the number of messages that can be produced, because these corporations aren't going to allow messages that they don't want out there to be spread out there. If they don't stand for something, if they don't stand for trans rights, if they don't stand for abortion rights, probably not going to allow a game that, tries to do things like that or throws in an offline that supports those kind of things. If they support certain countries, they don't support other countries. Maybe those countries won't be allowed to have their voice. They get a lot of these the creators, a lot of the writers and stuff like that are all uh, you know, used in a lot of the similar projects. And if you're got a good name with all the major corporations, you're probably going to be on there more often, and they're going to use your name more often, which lowers the opportunities of other people maybe that would like to get their shake and that kind of thing too. So there's a lot that is negative. There are some positives, especially for the smallest companies. They get more resources to maybe develop things that they want to that they weren't able to before. That is a positive in that regard. That is a good thing. It gives opportunities in that. Theoretically, it can create jobs in other ways because those smaller corporate companies now have those resources to hire more people. Hopefully, you would assume that they take advantage of these kind of things. So there's less stress, there's less time crunch and all those kind of things. That's not exactly what goes on, as we've seen with like Activision Blizzard. Sometimes the workplace, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how big you are. Sometimes it's even harder to control the bigger you are. And the people higher up, as long as they're making money, they don't really care like how that's going on, as long as it doesn't blow back on them. So it's really interesting to hold on. I got to pull up the page while you were talking to look at Dot Hack Publisher, Bandai Namco. I'm going to throw out all these games now since everybody wants to call them Elden Ring publisher, Bandai Namco.
Dot Hack.
I'm going to call
it
Dot Hack Publisher. It's really nice to see God Eater Publisher, Bandai Namco sit there and I'm done after that one, by the way, but to sit there and say they're not going to try to get bought out, but they brought up a good point. It is a lot harder for these smaller companies because these bigger companies have so much money now. The smaller companies like, hey, you want to tag team on this game? And the bigger company's like, why don't we just buy you? It's just like, we'll just bring you into the fold and then force you to do the things that we want you to do. And maybe we'll let you complete this project because it looks kind of cool. But then after that, we're going to, like some of these companies, the smaller companies get bought out and they get dissolved and then the pieces are moved around to other divisions and stuff like that. And yeah, there's a lot of things that concern me with this kind of stuff. And there are some positives, like I mentioned, but I feel like the bad in general outweighs the good in most cases in this kind of condensing of companies.
Yeah, I basically am very happy that the Tales of a publisher, Bandai Namco, is not going to be sold in this. At least what they said right here. And for those that aren't watching, Pete gave me a thumbs up, of course. But yeah, I was happy with seeing that because Bandai Namco is, at least for my opinion, a publisher that I do enjoy by themselves because, of course, they really target and hone the anime games market for the gamer, and I enjoy a number of their games. So, having the Scarlet Nexus publisher, Bandai Namco, continue to be a third party. All right, I'm done now too.
I appreciate you feeding into that.
I'm done now too, but to stay that way is important. But of course, as well, right? Just because they say that now doesn't mean in the future that won't happen. But I agree with you. I don't want to have a day and age where our company options are basically Nintendo, Xbox, Sony. Though I would like to continue to have these larger third-party publishers and developers. And, of course, you're always going to have indie game developers. That's just natural. So, of course, I'm not totally, in against that, if all the companies are owned, then we're not going to see games that come out to show the support of various aspects. But like always, indie games are harder to sell because most people don't think about indie games when it comes to the games media. They also don't have as much marketing dollars to market their game to try to sell more. And it really centers around word of mouth and, of course, name recognition. So that's the only thing. But I don't mind some acquisitions. I've said this before. I understand that as a company, sometimes the two ways that you need to develop is either create the game yourself or buy something to help you create the game that you're looking for or whatever. But I don't want to get to a point where we're seeing Square Enix sold and acquired by a company, or Bandai Namco sold and acquired by a company, or Ubisoft, for instance. Like, I want them to continue to stay the same. It's why with the EA Amazon thing, while I'm not entirely happy with it, at least Amazon is still technically a third party perspective, so they would still stay third party. So that's the thing. But we got to move on because of timing's sake. So let's get to our next article. And of course, it means that more money is going to be coming out of your pockets if you're looking for a PS5, at least if you're outside the United States. And that is an article coming from VG247, written by Sheriff Said. And it is, the PS5 is getting more expensive. Sony is doing what many thought is unthinkable. The company announced this morning, of course, this was back on Thursday, that Sony is doing, that they are raising the price of PlayStation 5 consoles across a wide range of markets globally. Company president and CEO Jim Ryan broke the news this morning on the PlayStation blog. In the post, Ryan cited high inflation rates and adverse currency trends are as the main reasons behind the price hike, calling it a, quote, a necessity given the current global economic environment and its impact on SIE businesses. Now, the United States is the only market that is not going to see an increase in the price, but Canada, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America will get the new prices, and they were effective immediately. In Japan, they're getting a price hike, but that won't take place until September 2015. Now, September 15th. Why did I say that? Sony did not say whether PS5 accessories such as the DualSense controller will receive the same hike. Of course, they give a breakdown of that, but in closing, Ryan said that Sony's top priority continues to be on improving PS5 availability. So, Pete, how shocked were you on this news coming out?
My favorite response, just before we continue, my favorite response I saw on social media to this was, actually, Sony's doing a great thing, because before I was thinking about, they're saving me a bunch of money, because before I was considering buying a PS5, and now I'm just not going to buy it.
Quote Daniel Ahmad. I know exactly who it was, as I saw it too.
You saw it? I might have saw it because you liked it or something then. I was shocked in the sense that it's really surprising when you increase a price of something like this. I also don't necessarily believe their reasoning behind it, where they say it's like, oh, it's because of inflation and all that, because they didn't increase the price everywhere. They're not increasing the price in the US. So it feels almost more like, to me, they're hoping that this deters people from buying these systems in other countries to maybe try to support, like, maybe, I don't know, like a holiday rush or something they're expecting. It also made me consider that number that that Sony, that you thought you were going to sell, like back in your sales meetings or whatever, your earnings calls. Are you just not going to reach that now? Because, like, there's going to be a significant number of people that are just like, yeah, I'm just not going to buy this system now in these other countries. So I think this could have been something they could have done early on to maybe, like, reduce the number of scalpers, but they should have started at that price. One suggestion I heard that was kind of interesting, I don't necessarily agree with it, was maybe they start at a higher price, like, say, like $700-800, like, to start, and then, like, every couple of months it reduces by another $50 till it gets to the price that they actually want it at, something like that. Just jumping this price up in the middle of like, especially, like, not even giving, like, a heads up, being like, hey, this is happening in a month. It's like, no, right now, effective immediately, except in Japan, but, like, these prices are going up. I was pretty shocked to see this headline, and I'm not shocked that we're talking about it, because this is pretty big news. But yeah, man, especially such a significant jump like they're doing with all these prices too. It's like 100, 150 like local currency dollars for most of these countries, at least.
Yeah, the biggest way for most of the countries, not all of them, of course, most of them is basically a $50 increase from what we pay here in the United States. But obviously in local currency, like that's probably a significant jump, and it obviously is. So that's not to sugarcoat those things at all. So please keep that in mind. But I'm not shocked by it because of the supply chain issue. I mean, it's been going on for a while. Like, every company has been struggling with it. Besides Steam, for some reason, Steam and their Steam Deck has increased production somehow. I don't know how that's the case, but every company is doing it. And so, like, I kind of figured at some point this might happen. And I do also figure at some point United States might actually get hit by this. But it's just kind of the situation. But I agree with what everyone's saying. I don't see how this ends up benefiting you as a company, because as you just said, some people are going to choose just not to buy it now. And then how long do these price increases stay? And obviously they're not going to say that right now because maybe they don't know entirely what's going to be on. But like, is every country just now going to have to pay extra for the PS5 until they decide, hey, now we're going to pull out the PS6. We'll put a discount on the PS5 now. Congratulations, yeah, right? So, like, I don't know what the thought process behind it is. And obviously, I have it in here, but to pass along, Sony, Xbox and Nintendo have already came out from this and said, no, we're not increasing our prices. Our prices are staying the same.
Nintendo did too.
Yeah, so that's, of course, a big thing. And that obviously gives them a lot of brownie points and, some good PR for Xbox and Nintendo that PlayStation just handed them for free. They're not increasing the price. Now, I did see off of this something online real quick that I want to say before we go on, is that somebody said, well, this clearly could indicate that a PlayStation showcase is coming in September, which has been the case for the last several years now. But it could very well indicate that that's coming because PlayStation needs good PR following this. Like, you kind of have the bad. You need to quickly cover it up with something good to try to get people to forget. So PlayStation has had a showcase for the last few Septembers. I'm sure that they'll probably have one again this year. But like I said, I was seeing some analysts kind of talking about, well, with this news coming out, they could be trying to follow it up right after with like, hey, we have a showcase coming up, and try to get people to sweep this under the rug. But
they're going to need something like their last showcase. They're going to need to knock it out of the park to wipe off to polish the turd that they got from this one. That's for damn sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. As well as, of course, the extra money drop that people are going to have to throw at it. But something that people are going to be throwing money at, including myself possibly, is PSVR 2. And that is coming sometime next year, as we going to NME.com for this one, written by Jake Green. Now, technically speaking, I do want to say this article is an SEO article, so it has like a lot of details. But I'm just kind of going to boil down to the nitty gritty, which is about the release date. So Sony is set to release the PSVR 2 headset, which will bring VR gaming to PS5 players utilizing next-gen hardware for a new generation of games. The reveal has been an odd one, with updates staggered over the last year or so. We know what the headset looks like. It even have games lineups to tide us over. Even with all of the small specs and tech breakdowns we've seen so far, we are missing some of the larger details on PSVR 2, specifically the release date and price of the main ones, with Sony keeping quiet on the last one. There have been some leaks, but now we do know, of course, when the estimated release date is, which PSVR 2 will launch early 2023, according to Sony. Now, pinning down a more specific date isn't particularly simple, however, given that there hasn't been any substantial leaks or rumors yet. One tidbit we do have is from industry insider Ross Young, who tweeted that delays to VR shipments at Apple and Sony have pushed the products into 2023. And now we know that the headset is indeed coming in 2023. We may not have long until the release, with more specifics, of course, coming later on and given later on down in this article. And I do also want to mention that Sony has made an announcement that PSVR 2 will be at Tokyo Game Show, which is, of course, the upcoming trade show that goes on in Tokyo. And that trade show will be coming in September 15th through the 18th. So, Pete, are you going to be hopping on the PSVR 2 train?
Personally, no. I'm looking forward to your opinions and like a lot of the opinions of others too, to try to see what this new VR system is going to be like. I'm not really a VR guy, so I don't know if I'm actually going to be super invested to buy into it. I mean, I guess eventually, in terms of like this is clearly where gaming is headed in some regard. So eventually I'm going to have to buy some kind of VR system at that point. But the thing I'm questioning is we just talked about a PS5 rate hike. So what's this going to come out as a price at, you know?
Yes.
Because you're already dropping, you originally were dropping like $500, but you know, most other countries now are going to drop like 650 or something like that just to get a PS5. And if they're going to drop another like 400, 500, the game mentions that Meta's uh, a VR system is like priced at 350. So like coming out at more than $400 for this thing.
No. I actually have an update, which is what I was going to pass along, because with all this going on, MetaQuest has increased their price of their headset. It now costs $399 and $499 depending on the terabyte version or the gigabyte version that you're looking at. So
this article is dated. Damn. All right. So now they got a little bit of leeway to maybe like, you know, make it 450, but that's like $1,000 you're dropping on a game console and a VR system without any bells and whistles or games or anything. That's a lot of money to drop on something like that. And I personally, I'm not that interested in dropping that kind of money in something that I don't know how much value or mileage I'm going to get out of. The PS5, I know I'm going to play a lot of at certain points. So I'm more okay with getting the value out of that. I know I'm going to get my $600 of enjoyment or whatever I paid the price for that. The VR system, I don't know if I'm going to get that kind of enjoyment out of that. And I'm sure part of it is I'm skeptical about it. And that's giving me a biased opinion on the negative side, a negatively biased opinion. But I am interested in what you think and where, like you already said, you're going to get the PSVR 2. Yeah. PSVR 2. Are there any games that you're like specifically like, I'm going to get PSVR 2 and I'm going to buy this game and we're playing in a PSVR 2. Have you seen anything like that yet?
No, just because, of course, like PSVR 2, while there are games like announced for it, we don't have a ton of games yet announced for it because it's still not out here. But obviously, like the Horizon Call of the Mountain VR game looks pretty cool, so I might dive into that one. But more so, I'm excited for it just because I've wanted of the PSVR when it first came out. I told the story before, and I'll say it again. I drove down 2.5 hours to the nearest Best Buy that had it to go test it out because I just wanted to enjoy it and check it out, and I had a blast with it. Unfortunately, my wife got a little bit of motion sickness from it, so she was not like, she enjoyed it, but then like as she kept playing with it, she was like, oh, I'm getting motion sickness. I didn't have that issue, and that's kind of why I ended up not getting the PSVR, was because obviously I would enjoy it, but it's still a lot of money to drop if my wife can't jump into it. So we're hoping with like the updated mechanics of the PSVR 2, that won't be the issue. But yeah, so kind of going back or piggying back off of the last article, you know, the MetaQuest, obviously owned by Meta, which was Facebook company and obviously is now Meta, they increased their prices, citing the same thing: production increased costs and, you know, the current economy market. So like, partially, that's why I also kind of believe what PlayStation is saying, but I don't know what it means like for the long run. But at least with MetaQuest, again, I don't know how much you value this. They increased the price, but for a limited time, they're giving away Beat Saber for free, which is like the game that a lot of people love on VR. So like, it's cool that you're getting that, but like, is that worth the $50 increase in your opinion? I don't know. But the game that I am really looking forward to, when or if it ever does come to PSVR 2, is Zenith City, which is basically the game that we talked about when it released back on our episode many moons ago, about basically being the Sword Art Online game. And like, I've seen that it's gotten really good reviews, that it's still like on Steam, a lot of people have positive outlooks on it. So like, I want to try that game out, and so if PSVR 2 allows me to, I want to dive into that and just check it out and see how it goes. But for specific games, though, I hope that it's, now granted, all signs are kind of pointing to, because of the new technology in PSVR 2, that it's not going to work. But I have a lot of PSVR games that I got for free over the years And so like I would love to be able to just like dive into some of those with PSVR 2, but I don't know if they're going to have backwards compatibility because of the amount of technology changes that differ from PSVR 1 to PSVR 2. So we shall see. Real quick, just because of timing's sake, we're going to have to go to 2 quick articles. So the first one is we're going to Xbox, where Phil Spencer says he expects to see fewer platform exclusives in the future. We're actually going to PSU.com, PlayStationUniversity.com, just because it's had the most condensed version for me to go off of. And it goes basically, Microsoft's head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, has revealed during an interview with Bloomberg that he expects platform exclusives to dwindle in the coming futures. Basically, he commented on the multi-format games was healthier in the long run for the video game industry compared to exclusive titles, which he says are something we're just going to see less and less of. And he basically says in the quote, maybe it happened in your household to buy an Xbox, I buy a PlayStation, and our kids want to play together, but they can't because they bought the wrong piece of plastic to plug into their television. We really love to be able to bring more players in, reducing friction, making people feel safe, secure when they're playing, allowing them to find their friends, play with their friends regardless of the device. And I think that's good for the long run in the industry. And maybe in the short run, there's some people in some companies that don't love it, but I think as we get over that hump and see where this industry can continue to grow, it'll prove out to be true. So, Pete, obviously, this is kind of in comments towards the Activision Blizzard purchase, which obviously Xbox has said at least for the next 3 Call of Duties will be placed on PlayStation. So how much do you buy into that statement from Phil Spencer?
So not a whole lot, because he's saying like, oh, this will be good for industry health. You know what else is good for industry health? Not buying up all the other companies and having 3 or 4 major corporations own all the major developers. That's probably even better for health, and you'd seem to be okay doing that. It's weird to bring this up too, because it's not like there's a whole lot of platform exclusives out there anymore. Like, there are some major titles. I'm not saying there aren't, but it seems like that's mostly gone the way of, like the early, like PS1, PS2 games, like, or systems. I don't really feel like they really have that. And the games that are available on all systems are also typically starting to become more and more cross-platform now. So I don't even know if that's like, this just feels like to be like a thing where I'm just like, yeah, I don't care about it. Another thing too, he's like, hey, what if we just got rid of all platform exclusives? Well, then what's going to be the biggest factor for determining which system you can buy? Probably, whatever the system is the best at that point. If there's no, theoretically, if there's no platform exclusives, you can buy any system and get any game. Well, then you're just going to buy the best system, which one's probably going to bring out the best system? I don't know. Probably the company that's the most expensive and can throw the most money at the system. Microsoft is probably going to be the one to get benefits the most from that. I understand that Nintendo has a bunch of their own platform exclusives. I don't think that's ever going to change, because I don't think unless Nintendo suddenly decides we're just not making any more consoles anymore, we're just going to make games, which I would be really surprised if that happened. So I understand they have a lot of platform exclusives, but if we're talking straight like PlayStation and Xbox, it doesn't feel like they have that many games. I think the biggest one I could think of off the top of my head is God of War is like a PlayStation exclusive, right?
Yeah, that's a Sony-owned studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest one I could think of.
I'm gonna have to help you a little bit on learning some of these exclusive Petes, because there are still quite a bit, and that's obviously what always gets people going upset online. And I just find it funny, like understandably so, right? This is part of business. It's part of what's going on. But I find it funny that he says this, but one of the biggest games that are about to come out that caused a huge uproar about being exclusive is Starfield. And Starfield was supposed to originally come to PlayStation and Xbox, and then when Xbox bought Bethesda ZeniMax, they made it's exclusive to Xbox, and that caused a huge uproar. So like, it just kind of
feels like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, doesn't it? That's weird.
So it's kind of just funny, which I guess what I could see because technically speaking, now granted the contract was in place ahead of time, but Deathloop was PlayStation exclusive when it was PlayStation and PC, when it was a Bethesda game already under the umbrella of Microsoft, but the contract obviously was in place beforehand the purchase. So like what there could be, of course, in the future, maybe Phil starts this whole thing, which is like, oh, the game is exclusive to Xbox for 1 year, and then in a year we now bring it to, you know, PlayStation or something like that. Like maybe that's what he's kind of getting to. And I do think, like you said, with more games becoming cross-platform, that's great. And I hope that continues to be the trend. But I still think that there's always going to be exclusives, and I think that he's kind of alluding to there always will be some exclusives. We just might not see as many. But yeah, I kind of shook my head a little bit because, again, like there's a number of games that they literally are about to release within the next 12 months that are Xbox exclusive. And here he goes saying we're going to see less of them. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like you said, can't have it both ways. So then the last thing I want to get to, and even though we're about to be over, I have to bring it up, which is the Wild Arms and Shadowhearts creators are coming together for a Kickstarter project that starts on Monday, and I cannot be more excited. We're going to rpgfan.com for this one, written by Gio Castillo, and it says, Armed Fantasia and Pennyblood coming to Kickstarter from Wild Arms and Shadowhearts creators. The talented people that made Wild Arms and Shadowhearts are counting on you to back their double Kickstarter campaign that starts on August 29th so they can make 2 large-scale successor RPGs called Armed Fantasia and Pennyblood. Now, you'll have the option to back one or both of the games and receive a variety of rewards and stretch goals as they are unlocked. The 2 campaigns will also have a so-called combo meter that unlocks extra content for both games no matter which one you contribute to, as long as the mutual minimum goal of $750,000 is reached. Essentially, supporters for one project will still help the other, even if they didn't specifically contribute money there. Now, Pete, I am a fan of Wild Arms and Shadowhearts. I have been saying for a while now here on the podcast, as well as in videos, that I would like both of these games to come back, a new entry at some point to happen. I literally have a script for a YouTube video talking about Wild Arms that is going to be coming out next week. So I was super excited about this. How about yourself?
Never played Wild Arms, never heard of Shadowhearts. Wild Fantasia.
Oh my God.
Wild Fantasia looks awesome. And I want to be clear about Wild Arms. I've not played it because not because I don't think the game looks good. I would play. I just never got around to actually acquiring it and playing it. That game, that series looks like it'd be a lot of fun. I like I said, I'd never heard of Shadowhearts, and maybe you kick me off the podcast and get a real podcaster to co-host with you because of that. But you're gonna have to get over it.
Oh my gosh, I cannot.
But Wild Fantasia looks awesome.
Armed Fantasia.
Armed Fantasia. I'm sorry, it's Wild Arms. Armed Fantasia. Armed Fantasia looks dope. I would definitely try it. Wild Arms, I know, is a beloved series, and like I said, I didn't play it because I didn't like it. I just played it because I never got around to playing it when I was a kid. That game would have been something I would have liked to have tried at least. So.
Well, I'm going to inform you right now, Pete, if you want to, and also for our listeners, which is also part of my upcoming video. If you have PlayStation Plus, you can play Wild Arms as well as Wild Arms 3. They are both on there, and you can dive into those. Obviously, Wild Arms 1 was the most popular, sold the most, but Wild Arms 3 is probably the most polished, in my opinion, game, but they're both a ton of fun. And Shadowhearts, man, I cannot believe you haven't known about it, but I will say, actually in that same breath, I can believe it because Shadowhearts unfortunately was not marketed very well, and so the game didn't sell a ton, which is crazy because it's a phenomenal game. Cannot recommend it enough. A lot of people should go check it out. I have a question for you. When did Shadowhearts come out? Shadowhearts came out on the PS2, so I want to say probably 2001, maybe 2002. What's your DOS? I know. I'm trying to get there. You give me a second, okay? 2001, 2002, I think. But anyway, When will these come out? I have no clue. But what I do know is what's coming out this week, and I'm going to tell you all about it, which starts with today, Friday, August 26th. We have Overlook for PC, The Company Man for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, and Xbox One. Nexomon plus Nexomon Extinction Complete Edition for PS4 and Switch. Pac-Man World Repack for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Soul Hackers 2 for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Aquadyne for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. On Tuesday, August 30th, you have Back 4 Blood, Children of the Worm DLC for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. F1 Manager 2022 for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Orcs, ORX for PC. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed for PS5, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC. Immortality for Xbox Series, PC, and iOS and Android. That's coming to Game Pass. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Tinykin for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. That's coming to Game Pass. Dusk Diver 2 for PS5, PS4, and Switch. Wednesday, August 31st, you have Call of the Wild, The Angler for PC. Skaith for PC. Thursday, September 1st, you have Ooblets for Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Chenzo Club for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. The Dragoness Command of the Flame for PC. Gerda, A Flame in Winter for Switch and PC. Mythbusters the Game for PC. Onsen Master for Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. And then Friday, September 2nd, you have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Lego Brawls for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Made in Abyss Binary Star Falling into Darkness for PS4, Switch, and PC. And then The Last of Us Part 1 for PS5. Pete, any of these catching your attention?
The games that caught my attention were The Company Man. We've had it on here a few times now. It looks like an entertaining, interesting platformer. Super interested in that. Orcs, ORX. That one seemed kind of like a fun little strategy game. It says it's a card builder or a deck builder game, roguelite kind of thing. So I'm interested how they do like a strategy type game for that. And then Dusk Diver 2, along with some of the bigger name ones like Soul Hackers 2 and I guess that's the only big name.
The Last of Us Part 1?
Oh yeah, The Last of Us Part 1. Yeah, sure, that one.
Oh yeah.
I haven't played any of the Last of I haven't played any of the Last of Us. It wasn't on the same page, damn it. Leave me alone. Those are like kind of like the three that I was looking at the hardest.
Yeah, so Soul Hackers 2, of course, I made mention of that last week on the episode. Dusk Diver 2, I have Dusk Diver 1, I still got to play it. That's the game, if you guys remember, I played it for 10 minutes during my home buying experience and then haven't been able to go back to it yet. JoJo Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, because I do enjoy those combat games, those fighting games, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle looks a lot of fun. And then while I'm not picking up The Last of Us Part 1, obviously the game looks phenomenal and I think will sell like hotcakes. The other one I'm actually interested in is Made in Abyss Binary Star Falling into Darkness. I am still one surprised that this game is even being made because of the way I've heard that Made in Abyss, the anime, is like, and it's super dark and stuff. And I've heard that this one is the game, like, obviously is not as dark, but still does dark things. I've been following this game development for a little while, so I'm interested to see how reviews, I guess, come out of it. And I want to ask just real quick, I know we're over, but Pete, you took a big, deep breath when I talked about Made in Abyss. Is it that dark?
So I watched season 1 and it was pretty dark. But also some of the best some of the best anime that I've ever watched. The last episode in particular is very heartrending, but also like just phenomenal storytelling, and it just really makes you connect with the characters. I have not watched the new movie, and I have not watched season 2. There might be something wrong with the author from some of the stuff I've heard that has happened. It is quite dark. Yes. I don't know how deep the video game will dive into that, how far they will go, but there's probably a very good reason this game was rated M for mature.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's like, you know, if anyone goes and looks this up, you're gonna see what looks like little like kitties on the front, and you might be like confused why it has an M rating. But again,
those kitties are probably dying. That's like, the M rating.
Well, way to spoil it. But I was going to just basically say, just take the rating for what it says. All right, don't get caught off guard by what's on the front cover.
I actually need to see the box now. Give me a sec. I want to see this. Keep going. By the way.
Yeah. So that was kind of just my big thing, but yeah, I'm curious to see how it turns out because
this is a Nintendo game. That is wild. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's not a Nintendo game. It's being published by Spike Chunsoft. Right. It's just coming to Nintendo.
Yeah. So there are kids on there. The kids probably won't die. I thought you said kitties, like kittens.
No. Yeah. Kids, like little kitties on there.
Yeah, my bad. They're probably not dying.
KDDIE.
They're not dying, but they'll probably go through some fucked up shit. So be ready for that.
All right, so be ready for that. But that is all that we have here for this episode. Pete, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Keep on gaming. Gaming's fun.
Keep on gaming indeed. But everybody, that's all that we have here for this episode. I've been one of your co-hosts, Jeremy Culver, aka Darce. This has been the California Thirst Quencher, Pete Legia, and we really enjoy bringing this to you. So as always, everybody, stay hydrated, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep on gaming. We'll see you guys on the next episode.